kuwahimiza kwamba sote tuweze kusimama kwa ajili ya ombi. Tuombe. Mtakatifu, mtakatifu Baba wetu, mfalme mwema, tunakushukuru kwa sababu unastahili sifa. Asante kwa kuwa nasi kwa siku nzima. Umetuwezesha kwa wiki nzima, tumeweza kuwa na pumzi ya uhai. Tunakushukuru. Katika siku ya leo ambayo ni sabato yako takatifu, tuchikabidhi mkononi mwako, tukiomba uwepo wako uweze kuwa miongoni mwetu. Na tunapojiandaa kwa ajili ya mahubiri, tunaomba kila mmoja wetu uweze kuwa pamoja naye. Tuwakumbuka wenzetu wote wanaokutanika siku ya leo kwa ajili ya kuabudu na kulisifu jina lako, uweze kuwa pamoja nao. Tunapoanza mahubiri yetu ya siku ya leo, tutaweka mtumishi wako Elder Solomon Wango atakaposimama kwa ajili ya neno lako, uweze kuwa pamoja naye, umuongoze na yote atakayonena yaweze kuwa na mambo ambayo yanatuleta karibu nawe. Tupe usikivu mwema, na zaidi yote Baba mbinguni, jina lako liweze kuinuliwa milele zote. Hilo ndio ombi letu kupitia Yesu Kristo ambaye ni mkombozi wetu. Amen. Nachukua nafasi hii kumkaribisha Elder Solomon Wango ili aweze kusimama atupatie neno ambalo umemwandaa kwalo. Wangapi pamoja nami wanaosema Elder Solomon Wango, karibu. Asante. Elder, karibu kwa ajili ya neno.
Happy Sabbath.
Happy day.
Ni asubuhi njema yenye Mungu ametupea, asubuhi yenye ya furaha, na kila mtu ako na tumaini ya kuwa katika nyumba la Bwana. Kabla sijasonga mbele, wangapi wananisaidia kukaribisha Elder Richard Nyasaka mwenye alipata nafasi kunikaribisha? Asanteni sana. Leo hii Mungu aliona tupate nguvu kutoka kwa neno lake, kwa sababu nyakati ambayo saa hizi tunaishi ni nyakati ambayo watu wengi wako na changamoto. We are going to talk about hope where there is no hope. Kutuanzisha, let's get our first reading from the book of Romans 5:3-5.
Romans 5:3-5. It says, "And not only so, but we glory in tribulation also, knowing that tribulation worketh patience, and the patience experience, and the experience hope. And the hope maketh not ashamed, because the love of God is set abroad in our hearts by the Holy Ghost which is given unto us."
Paul says that we can rejoice in our suffering because we are a people of hope. If you are not people of hope, then you will not be living at this moment. We only live by hope, for we know that the source of hope, who is Jesus Christ, is always with us. But then, what is hope? Hope, according to the dictionary, is trusting in, waiting for, looking for, or a desire for something which is beneficial to your life. But what is good to us is the biblical perspective of hope. According to the Bible, hope is that part of faith that focuses on the future. Having known what hope is, as Christians, how can we have hope amidst all the sufferings that we are currently undergoing through. One, for us to move through the suffering that we are currently undergoing, we need to rely on the presence of God. But tell me, brethren, who rejoices in suffering? Who is happy because his family is constantly tormented with problems? No one, even God, is not happy when you suffer. But suffering is used to give God glory. It is for redemption. That is why sometimes we undergo suffering to make the name of God greater. Think of Job. Job went through a lot in his life. But not a single time did it demean the name of God. No matter the kind of suffering that we are going through, God will remain being God. Suffering is meant to shape us and build us into the image of Jesus, which is the highest passion of God. There is no kind of suffering that we can go through which Jesus did not taste. That is why God allows some forms of suffering to come to us so that his name can be glorified. When we go through suffering, we often pray more. Believe me, as human beings, it is the time when we are at our lower level. That is when we begin to remember that God liveth. That is the time that we even take our time to pray even more. Think of the children of Israel. When they were moving from Egypt, when they had already been taken out by Moses. When God had provided for them, they were happy. Within no time, they were demeaning the name of God. When they were in need, they started crying and saying, now they need God. So our problem is, when we have plenty, we never think about God. That's why God also knows.
Yeah, thou hast walked through the fire of the shadow of hell. I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. The Lord, thy Lord, and thy staff, they comfort me.
Amina. Thy rod and thy staff. It also talks about the valley of the shadow of death. David talks that way because he had gone through a lot. But he knows that even at the times of his low level in life, when he is not getting all that he needs, God is always watching on him. Remember, this is David who cried so many days for God to save his child. But when the child died, he just picked himself up. Like him, we should also learn to make and always remember that God will always be God. Despite whether he giveth us what we asked him, or he hasn't given us what we asked him. Because he knows clearly the reason why he has not given you what you wanted. So God will always be God. When he talk about the valley of the shadows of death, David means that even though he's suffering, even though he's down there, his master is watching on him. His master knows very well that he is there, and it is only a while for him to pick him up. For no shadow can ever exist when there is no light. So Jesus is the source of our light, and we should always rejoice because we know that he's ever there for us. Secondly, for us to live in God's hope, we need to rely on God's provision. Let's hear what Paul says in 2 Corinthians 12, verse 7.
He says, unless I should be exalted above measure through the abundance of the revelations, there was given to me a thorn in the flesh, the message of Satan to perfect me, lest I should be exalted above measure.
That verse tells us that God was concerned about Paul not becoming proud. He allowed this to happen to him to prevent him from becoming conceited. Sometimes we do things until we feel that it has come out of our own strength. So God knows what is in our hearts, and that's why, like Paul, he had to give him a vision. And in that, he saw that he has to suffer in carrying out his work. In our current situation, God is saying to us that it is his grace that is sufficient. And even when we feel weak, he is making us strong. When we are at our low level, God's work carries on. He uses that to make his name greater. The problem that you are going currently through may be a reason for God to extend his gospel. Lastly, when we must have hope in our current situation, we must have God's power. And let you have the power that cometh from God, you cannot carry on. In the same verse, 2 Corinthians verse 12, verse 9, what does it say, Zomaji?
2 Corinthians verses 9. It says, and he said unto me, my grace is sufficient for thee, for my strength is made perfect in weakness. Most gladly, therefore, will I rather glory in my infirmities, that the power of Christ may rest upon me.
Paul says that he will boast more gladly of his weakness, so that the power of Christ may rest upon him. It is better for you to recognize your weakness, because it is at that moment where God will have opportunity to lift you up, because you have realized your point of need. Like Paul, he needed God's power, and that's why he had to bring himself down for God to pick himself. I may be talking to somebody somewhere there, somebody who is weak in his life. Maybe you have a daughter, a son who is in need. Maybe you have prayed, but nothing is forthcoming. Maybe you have a patient in hospital. You have tried all you can, and nothing is forthcoming. I want to tell you that God is there for you and is calling upon you not to relent. That is the time that you need Him even more. That is the time that you even need to pray so that you can see God's hand. Whatever it is that Paul says to us is that he himself, he will boast of his weakness so that God can open up and lift him up. Do not hide, thinking that you can make it because of your own strength. It is only God who has the power to uplift us. Maybe somebody somewhere is hearing the voice of God. Today in the morning, I heard a father cry for his daughter. A daughter who has made his father even to leave the work of God because of the shame that she has sown him. I saw a father resembling Jesus Christ because the same father this morning accepted her daughter back. Like Jesus, we are being called to remember that God is always there for us. Brothers and sisters, we are told that God will never run away from us. It is us who always run away from Him, kwa sababu tunafikiri ya mambo ya hizi dunia. Tukimaliza, nataka kuomba wenzetu zote, tafadhali fikiria mahali umetoka, yale machungu umepitia na huwezi, na kutangazia mwana ambaye anaweza kutolea hizo zote, na ni Yesu Kristo, ambaye ndio mwanga pekee yenye ako na nguvu yenye anaweza kutolea kwa hii jangwa. Tuombe ili tupate nguvu, ili tuweze kupita nyakati ambayo tunaishi. My Lord and my Father, your children are standing before thee. They have a lot of heavy yoke with them, Jehovah Lord. They've tried everywhere, but there is no hope. They've realized, Lord, that you are the only hope that they need in their lives. Father, may you listen to them. Glorious Master, forgive us our sins and allow us another opportunity, Lord, to walk with thee. Father, this is our prayer. In Jesus' holy name we ask. Amen.